Well, folks, we're officially one day before the NBA trade deadline, and there is a lot that we need to discuss on today's edition of the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff. Heat lost against the Bulls last night, but we won't really talk about that because everyone's more concerned about what is going to happen before the deadline as Jimmy Butler remains on the Miami Heat roster. We have a ton of updates regarding him, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and what could potentially expire and go down with the Golden State Warriors. But make sure you are subscribed because if Jimmy Butler does get traded, we will be going live. And if he is still on this roster tomorrow, we will be live for 2+ hours before the NBA trade deadline. So hit that sub button and join the channel because no one will have you covered better on the Miami Heat around the deadline than us. All right, I want to start with this because The Athletic dropped a report late yesterday revolving Bradley Beal about how he just simply won't waive his no-trade clause. And it really doesn't sound like it matters where he will ultimately go. Like, it doesn't matter if he would go to Miami. It doesn't matter if he would go back to Washington. It sounds like Beal is not waiving his NTC. He wants to stay in Phoenix. He doesn't want to move his family once again like he did a couple of off seasons ago from Washington to Phoenix. So Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause for a reason, and he is going to exercise that right. So if a Jimmy Butler trade goes down revolving the Phoenix Suns, it will not be involving Bradley Beal. I feel very confident in saying that right now on the channel. Now, I have been saying that for 5+ weeks. I said at the beginning of January that I never thought a Suns trade would actually happen because I didn't see a 3-4 team deal materializing where Beal waived his no trade clause. The team was willing to acquire him. The Heat got the assets they wanted, and Jimmy teamed up with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in Phoenix. I just never thought that was a real possibility, and I feel vindicated in the fact that that will not ultimately transpire. But a Jimmy Butler Phoenix Suns trade is not actually off the table because the unthinkable has happened and Kevin Durant trade rumors are real. You remember the video I put out yesterday talking about some of these Durant murmurs around the league and if Miami could trade Jimmy Butler to Phoenix alongside a draft pick and Alec Burks or Josh Richardson to make the matching salaries happen, and the Heat get Kevin Durant. Well, it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. It doesn't look like Kevin Durant will be traded to Miami, although I am sure and I've heard that the Heat have talked at least a little bit with Phoenix and inquired about the possibility of getting Durant. But the thing is, KD trade rumors are real, and it's more likely that he ends up in Golden State than anything else. Apparently, the Warriors are all in on potentially acquiring Durant, teaming him back up with Steph Curry. And the only player on the roster that is untouchable, according to some reports and rumors out there in Golden State, is Steph Curry. So they would be willing to potentially move Draymond Green if it meant getting Kevin Durant back in Golden State. Now, after doing some looking and research, a Durant to the Warriors trade is not very possible in terms of one team swapping action because of the Suns being in the second apron. The salary has to match exactly between KD and that team acquiring him. So they would have to involve a third team, which is where Miami could be actually involved in a Durant trade, but it doesn't ultimately land them KD in that specific deal, but could land them other assets and prospects. There is also other teams reportedly pursuing Kevin Durant. It doesn't sound like the Houston Rockets, who I would have probably put very highly on the list, is pursuing him that aggressively. They want to keep their young core together, which is admirable, but I would probably try to acquire Durant specifically since they are top 3 in the Western Conference right now, but that's neither here nor there. Now, what I do want to talk about is a potential Jimmy Butler 3-team deal that still lands him in Phoenix, and that deal that I was talking about that could ultimately get Andrew Wiggins potentially to Miami, but I do want to get your thoughts down in the comment section as we are 24 hours away from the NBA trade deadline, just about. Let me know where Jimmy Butler will ultimately be playing on Friday. Now, if he's with Miami, he probably wouldn't return in that Friday's game, but let me know, is Jimmy going to be a member of the Heat, the Warriors, the Suns? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. But there has been a 3-team deal floated out there by some reporters and insiders about Jimmy Butler still heading to Phoenix. Golden State acquires Kevin Durant. And then you also see Andrew Wiggins and expiring contracts heading to Miami, maybe some draft capital as well. And you might ask, why would Phoenix do that? Well, the owner in the Suns, Matt Ishbia, is a very wild card type of owner. He wants to remain competitive. And it sounds like the only person that is guaranteed to be on that team past Thursday's deadline is Devin Booker. So there is a chance Durant gets traded. And when you think about a possible retool of that Suns roster, if they are told privately by Kevin Durant that he is not going to extend, and him extending in Phoenix was all hinging on being able to trade Bradley Beal in a 3-team deal for Butler, and it's very obvious that that's not going to happen. Well, maybe KD says, yeah, I'm actually not going to extend, and you might as well trade me now. I'm not requesting a trade, but if we aren't going to win a title, which it doesn't seem like Phoenix is capable of doing with their current roster construction, and I'm not going to extend, you might as well get ahead of it and trade me now to recoup some assets. And if Phoenix wants to remain competitive and still sell some tickets, Jimmy Butler and Devin Booker would be a pretty solid duo. Now, was it better than KD and Book? Probably not, but Jimmy Butler would still have that team in the postseason, and Butler is as good as a playoff riser as there is in the NBA. So I could see Phoenix saying, yeah, it sucks that Kevin Durant wants to get traded away from us, but it's not like we're going to get any young studs from Golden State because the question marks are there on Jonathan Kuminga, plus you'd have to pay him. Andrew Wiggins is already under a 3-year deal, plus he doesn't move the needle in Phoenix. So it's like, all right, yeah, we'll take Jimmy Butler in return for Kevin Durant since he doesn't want to extend here. And then some of those picks and Wiggins' contract ultimately ends up in Miami, which at this point I would welcome quite a bit to get Andrew Wiggins in the 305. And we're going to continue the conversation here in just a second, but I do got to show some major love to today's sponsor. That is Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports platform. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And although we're talking basketball, the big game in football is this upcoming Sunday. Don't miss out on the last game of the season, where Prize Picks is giving away a free pick for the big game, more than Patrick Mahomes' half a passing yard. If you are correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Make sure you also check out the promos tab for any of the Prize Picks Super Sweat Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can split $1 million in promo funds. They also offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, as we get back to talking about Jimmy Butler, yeah, I don't think they're going to get Kevin Durant. I know it's a pipe dream. Actually, one of the top Suns insiders, I always forget how to say his last name, but John Gambardero, I believe is what it is, said on Twitter that he wouldn't rule out Kevin Durant for Jimmy Butler. Now, maybe that is ultimately misleading, and it's not Jimmy netting Kevin Durant for Miami, but it's just kind of a swap for Phoenix like the one we just mentioned. There is a name that I think should be mentioned here in talks with Golden State and Miami revolving a 3-team deal, a straight-up deal with Jimmy Butler. It's actually Dennis Schroeder. We haven't talked about him that much over the past week or so when discussing Warriors Jimmy Butler deals, but he actually is eligible to be traded today. Remember, he was dealt from Brooklyn to Golden State earlier on this season in a move that Golden State tried to get ahead and add backcourt help to Steph Curry. That's kind of backfired. Schroeder's on an expiring contract, and he would be an intriguing fit if you can get Wiggins and Schroeder plus whatever salary is needed to completely match in a deal. I would be kind of excited about that. I've been very open about at this point in this stage of Jimmy Butler trade talks that you need to get Andrew Wiggins in return. I would be very happy with that return if I am Miami, but also you need to add a true ball handler and point guard because Tyler Hero has been having an all-star season. He's been great. He's improved as a passer and as a playmaker, but you see that he is not a true point guard. He consistently has 4 or 5 turnovers a night trying to lead this team. And when he's getting doubled, he's getting the best defender thrown at him every single night, it would be very helpful to him and this basketball team offensively to have a better ball handler, a better facilitator and initiator to move Tyler Hero back to his natural role of being an off-ball scorer and off-ball shooter. I think it would just make the entire offense flow better and limit the turnovers, which has been a major issue for Miami over the last month or so. So even though Schroeder has been an up-and-down player via his career, you plug him into that starting lineup as a true point guard, Hero back to the 2, in that potential deal, maybe Wiggins is your 3. You have a starting lineup of Schroeder, Hero, Wiggins, Bam, Kalal Ware, Jovic, Jaquez, Duncan, Highsmith coming off the bench. Don't know if all of those guys would be there because of other salary matching moves and stuff like that, and maybe a different deal gets done before the deadline. But that's a lineup that is much more intriguing and much more competitive. And I do want to say this, is that doesn't kind of rule anything off the table either, in my opinion, because the reports are out there that the Warriors' top trade target is Kevin Durant. They are going all in to try to acquire KD and re-team him up with Steph Curry, which, by the way, just from an objective basketball point of view, would actually be chills. Like, you want to talk about the NBA ratings being back and skyrocketing. KD and Steph together again, Golden State, would be awesome to watch. And then you have Luka and LeBron as well teaming up. I mean, it would just be all-time television. Then you've still got teams like Memphis and OKC playing well in the Western Conference. But all right, back to Jimmy Butler here, because it is reported that if the Suns ultimately say, you know what, we've listened to KD trade offers, but we're keeping Durant, we're not trading KD. If that happens, or another team swoops in and trades for KD and Golden State's holding the bag, they will pivot to Jimmy. It's very wide known that even with Jimmy not giving them their word of extending past this season or past his current contract right away, Jimmy Butler will be the top trade target for the Golden State Warriors if they cannot land KD. So I have found new confidence that the Heat will ultimately be able to find a Jimmy Butler trade before the deadline, because they can either hop into that 3-team deal where Golden State lands KD, or if the Durant rumors fall off and the Warriors miss out, they will turn their attention to Jimmy Butler. And it sounds like we already know what the deal would be. And even though I mentioned Dennis Schroeder, I don't think that will ultimately happen for Miami, even though it would be very nice to see that. What I think would actually be the deal is potentially a 3-team deal or these 4 contracts from Golden State, because they line up perfectly. There's a little bit of buzz out there that these 4 players did not hop on the most recent flight from Golden State on their road trip, but it's Andrew Wiggins, Buddy Hield, Kevon Looney, and Lindy Waters. Those 4 contracts, after the rumors, match up perfectly with Jimmy Butler's contract. Andrew Wiggins is under contract for 3 years. Buddy Hield's got a multi-year contract. Looney and Waters, both expiring deals. They would combine for about $10 million in expirings coming off the books after this season. Hield is interesting. We've talked in depth about Wiggins. Hield is under contract for 3 or 4 seasons, but could that ultimately lead the Heat to be trading Duncan Robinson? A lot of Heat fans, including myself, were intrigued by the minutes distribution last night, where Rozier played 29-30 minutes. I was furious with Spo for playing him because he was so bad, and Spoelstra was the reason why we lost to the Bulls, for playing Rozier that entire fourth quarter. But Duncan Robinson only played 11-12 minutes. I understood him coming out of the game early because of foul trouble. He got 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes, but he had 8 points and accounted for the first 10 points for Miami last night. He was off to a hot start against Chicago and then plays only 12 minutes. He doesn't look like he's hurt, so why was that? And that's kind of like a Brian Windhorst, like, why is this happening type moment with Miami. But either way, that's something that I'm monitoring, and that's why you got to stay subscribed. We'll be on the lookout for every single piece of trade rumors, news, anything that happens around the league that affects Miami. We'll have you covered. And when a trade finally goes down, we will either go live or we will already be live for the NBA trade deadline tomorrow. So hit that sub button, join us, because our content and coverage over the next 24, 30 hours until that 3 p.m. Eastern Time deadline is going to be second to none. So join the channel.